Hello, everybody. Our subject for today is social studies or global citizenship with the title Reduced Inequalities, UN Sustainable Development Goal. Our goal for today is that by the end of this lesson, students will understand the concept of reduced inequalities as one of the UN Sustainable Development Goals and apply the principles of design thinking methodology to propose innovative solutions to address inequalities in their local community.
Social inequality is the condition where people have unequal access to valued resources, services, and position in society. Kerbo 2003 p11. It is broader than just wealth inequality because it also includes factors like discrimination and access to government support. When social inequality occurs, there is an uneven distribution of resources between individuals or groups, and this happens in almost all societies. These resources and right go from education to power, status, and so on. Social inequality is the result of social hierarchy or stratification with class, gender, race, ethnicity, or sexuality being a part of the experience of social inequality. According to theories like the Davis-Moore thesis, it's also an inevitable feature of society. Social inequality definition. In the field of sociology, unlike economics, social inequality is taken to include differences on many levels: income, resources, power, status, social capital, as well as in levels of social inclusion and exclusion. Warwick Booth 2018. When social inequality occurs, there is an unequal distribution of and unequal access to material and non-material goods. Material goods could be income, but also things like housing. Non-material social goods refer to intangible things such as access to social networks or social status. In this sense, social inequality is a multifaceted approach to uneven differences in access to resources for different social position or status within a group or society. Thus, dimensions like gender, sexuality, ethnicity, or classal impact on being able to access or not social goods and resources as well as opportunities. Social inequality is important because it has an impact on people's life senses, is their living conditions, their work opportunities, and the overall life outcomes of both individuals and groups. Sutter 2014.
Social inequality examples. We have wealth inequality. Wealth plays a major role in social perpetuating inequality. People with higher net worth have greater access to resources, can outbid poorer people to access limited resources, and can buy access to people in power. We also have income inequality that refers to wealth inequality, but it functions in a similar way. It's a unequal distribution of money in workforce. For example, the wage differential between CEOs and workers has spiked in recent decades, which has exacerbated social inequalities. We have access to basic information, such as that is unequal when wealthier neighborhoods have better primary schools, or when lack of public transit to schooling acts as a substantial barrier for poorer people. Access to higher education. Unequal access to education can be a result of factors such as geographical barriers and financial barriers. Without higher education, it is harder to achieve social mobility. Age inequality, also known as ageism, this refers to a discrimination against people based on their age. For example, it occurs in relation to access to employment for those over the age of 50. Deprived neighborhoods are an example of how it is not only individuals who suffer inequality, sometimes whole areas can be affected by the unequal distribution of rights and resources. This happens, for example, when some neighborhoods have restricted access to hospitals and transport.
Housing inequality. Having access to a house or living in sufficient accommodation is both a cause and a consequence of social inequality. Living in a social housing, for example, is related to being at the bottom of the social hierarchy. Racial inequality. Inequality based on race can be a result of systematic and intergenerational racism, a discriminatory attitude by which access to rights has not been distributed equally across people of different races and which has been passed down through generations of deprivation. Gender inequality. Inequality based on gender is called sexism, a discriminatory attitude by which women are more likely to be worse off in the equality scales. For example, they tend to earn less than men for the same jobs. Health access inequality. Unequal access to healthcare is most starkly shown by the rural-urban divide, where rural people often need to travel to cities to receive care, and the class divide, where working-class people often find funding to a barrier to access to quality care. Caste systems. Traditional caste societies deny access to jobs based on your ascribed status at birth. Furthermore, they may deny people from marrying one another across castes. Geographical inequality. Geographical inequality can be within a nation, the rural-urban divide, as well as globally, developing versus developed nations. Citizenship status. People may face limited protections based upon their citizenship. While it's generally accepted that a tourist in a country shouldn't access some public services covered by taxation, when non-citizens are denied human rights like access to a lawyer, we might start to consider citizenship status as a dimension of inequality in a society. Child poverty. Child poverty is a key driver of social inequality. People born into poverty can experience malnutrition, poorer educational results, and lower overall lifetime earning on average. Power and status inequality. Access to powerful people is unequally distributed. People who are privileged on the social hierarchy have higher social status and consequently have more access to people in powerful political and corporate positions. There is also unequal power distribution between men and women as demonstrated by the glass ceiling phenomenon. LGBT discrimination. Historically, LGBT people have faced discrimination that has affected their ability to do many things heterosexual people can access, including starting and raising a family and accessing healthcare as spouses.
Intergenerational inequality. This occurs when one generation in society has had greater access to resources than others at similar points in their lives. For example, in the UK and Australia, baby boomers had free higher education, which has denied to future generations who had to pay for it. This affected future generation prospects in a way that did not affect baby boomers. Incarceration rates. Taking a look at the incarceration rates versus race in which different racial groups commit crimes can demonstrate how people of color are more likely to be in prison if they are caught committing a crime. Service inequality. Inequality access to service can be seen across many vectors of society, including rural-urban divide and rich-poor divide. Discriminatory laws. Laws and encourage discrimination, such as segregation laws, can be a source of social inequality. Indigenous inequality. First Nation groups have long suffered of inequality access to resources in society. One demonstration of this is the lack of clean drinking water in many First Nation communities in Canada.
What if when we asked kids what they wanted to be when they grow up, they told us the other possibilities that awaited them. What if little boys said, "I'll have a higher risk of skin cancer. I'll be treated like a less competent parent. I'll have a higher risk of being incarcerated." And what if little girls told us, "I might struggle with an eating disorder. I won't have a lot of political role models. I'll get paid less just because I'm a girl." And what if gender nonconforming kids told us, "I'll probably be bullied by my peers. I might get kicked out of my house. I won't feel safe using the toilet when I'm out in public." These are the realities that children are facing because these are the realities that adults are facing.
Gender is a key dimension of social inequality as for a variety of reasons. The unfair treatment of people based on their gender still happens in contemporary society. There are three main areas in which gender inequality can be found: health, education, and the workplace. For example, in relation to health, although women live longer than men, they have more ill health throughout their lives. In terms of education, there is still segregation in certain subjects. For example, computing and engineering are still dominated by men. Finally, in the workplace, we can find that it's called a glass ceiling, which stops women from progressing in their careers.
What is or isn't racist, or who is or isn't racist, is one of the most hotly debated issues in American society. Is racism about what you believe, or is it about how you behave toward other races? What is prejudice, and why does it exist? Sociology can't make racism go away, and it can't make it any less disturbing. It probably can't even make the issue of race and racism less loaded than it already is. But it can help us understand racism, and understanding is an important start.
Social inequality and ethnicity. Racism is the expression of social inequality based on a person or a group, race, or ethnicity. It has been shown that people of ethnic minority backgrounds experience higher rates of employment. They are more likely to be prosecuted by the criminal justice and also be victims of crime, live in the inadequate housing, have bad mental and psychical health, or be included from education. These are examples of institutional racism. All of this cause social inequality is the middle and the longer term and slim down ethnic minorities' life chances.
Five times more likely to die in childbirth.
It's horrifying.
That's extraordinary.
And we shouldn't have a situation like this. Time and time again, black women said to me they weren't listened to. You know, they had been in hospital, they'd had their babies, they didn't feel well, and they were sent home, and they had to be rushed back into hospital because, you know, there was something wrong. Now, they knew there was something wrong, and they tried to tell, you know, the kind of health professionals that there was something wrong. But often they don't hear us. They don't listen to us.
Social inequality and health. There is a clear relation between social inequality and health for multiple reasons. For example, income determines being able to afford things like gym membership or fresh fruit, which keep people healthier. Occupation also has a role in health inequality, a life expectancy. For example, teachers live longer than plumbers. Finally, in countries in which there is no universal health coverage, those with higher incomes will have greater access to services from health promotion to prevention or treatment.
Discrimination and stereotyping on the basis of age. We experience it anytime someone assumes we're too old for something. instead of finding out who we are and what we're capable of, or too young. Ageism cuts both ways. All isms are socially constructed ideas. Racism, sexism, homophobia, and that means we make them up, and they can change over time.
Ageism refers to stereotypes, how we think, prejudice, how we feel, and discrimination, how we act, towards others or oneself based on age. While ageism can be directed towards younger or older people, in terms of inequality, it is in older groups that the focus will be put on. People who are older may experience discrimination in the workplace, for example, in terms of accessing jobs which can lead to higher rates of unemployment. Furthermore, older people with small pensions have less spending power and thus less access to certain resources, for example, paying for leisure and cultural activities, thus putting them at a disadvantage.
The world is full of inequality. There's racial inequality, gender inequality, health, education, political inequality, and of course, economic inequality. Some people are rich and some people are poor, and it can seem pretty impossible to fix.
Well, maybe not. While social inequality is not solely based on income or wealth, money, whether from the job one does or from access to family wealth, plays a role in accessing resources. This greater access to resources means that some people are at a greater advantage than others, for example, in relation to good health and education. As has been explained, this difference in access to resources is at the heart of social inequality and impacts on people's life changes, hence its importance. Conclusion. Social inequality is a complex subject due to its transversal nature. As it has been pointed out, it is more than just having more or less money. In social inequality, there are many factors at play, such as gender, age, or ethnicity, as well as other aspects like class or neighborhood. The importance of fighting off social inequality lies in its cumulative nature and in how it determines people's life changes, sometimes for generations.